Merci beaucoup tout le monde. First of all, thank you very much to Last Door Recovery and the incredible heroes we have behind us here today to celebrate Clean, Sober, Proud. Merci tout le monde d'être venu aujourd'hui. Après 8 ans de Justin Trudeau, tout semble être brisé. Les prix augmentent plus rapidement que dans 40 ans. Les taux d'intérêt augmentent plus rapidement que jamais dans notre histoire. Il y a des personnes âgées qui doivent choisir entre le chauffage et la nourriture à cause des coûts qui augmentent après les taxes et les impôts inflationnistes imposés par le gouvernement Justin Trudeau. 9 sur 10 Canadiens, jeunes Canadiens, pensent qu'ils ne vont jamais pouvoir acheter une maison à cause du fait que le prix de logement a doublé pendant 8 ans de Justin Trudeau. Ces déficits inflationnistes augmentent les taux d'intérêt sur les hypothèques et les gardiennes de privilèges, les bureaucrates, empêchent la construction de nouvelles maisons. Donc, nos jeunes ne peuvent pas trouver des maisons. Donc, davantage de nos jeunes vivent dans les centres d'hébergement et dans les rues. Ça cause un désespoir. Il y a une 32% augmentation dans la crime violente après 8 ans de Justin Trudeau à cause de ces politiques qui libèrent les criminels la même journée qu'ils sont arrêtés pour les crimes violents. Et les morts liées à la drogue ont augmenté énormément aujourd'hui, pendant les 8 ans de Justin Trudeau. On apprend aujourd'hui qu'il y a une augmentation massive dans le taux de mortalité lié aux surdoses ici en Colombie-Britannique depuis la déclaration d'urgence en 2016. Donc, les politiques des néo-démocrates et de Justin Trudeau par rapport à la drogue ne fonctionnent pas. On sait que la crise d'opioïdes est le résultat en partie des grandes entreprises pharmaceutiques, leurs distributeurs et leurs consultants qui ont menti afin de vendre ces drogues qui tuent nos jeunes ici au Canada. C'est la raison pour laquelle le gouvernement Poilievre va poursuivre ces grandes entreprises pour recevoir de l'argent afin de financer le traitement et la récupération des gens. Ces grandes entreprises savaient exactement ce qu'ils faisaient en vendant ces drogues à notre système de santé. Et le résultat, c'est une grande crise de dépendance et de surdose qui est arrivée à travers l'Amérique du Nord. Le gouvernement Trudeau n'a rien fait pour tenir responsable de ces entreprises. Ici, en Colombie-Britannique, le gouvernement a lancé une poursuite judiciaire. Le gouvernement Poilievre va ajouter le gouvernement fédéral à cette poursuite. Et ensuite, on va lancer une autre poursuite séparée pour couvrir des autres coûts que paye le gouvernement fédéral liés à la drogue et à l'opioïde. Donc, on va chercher 44 milliards de dollars de ces entreprises afin de payer le prix que les contribuables doivent subir pour cette crise. C'est les coûts pour les forces frontalières, les policières, les prisons, le traitement, les programmes pour les peuples autochtones. Ces coûts-là sont énormes et c'est une génération de coûts. C'est les entreprises pharmaceutiques et leurs consultants qui devraient payer le prix. Donc, c'est pour ça que le gouvernement Poilievre va les poursuivre et on va utiliser l'argent pour des programmes comme celui ici pour sauver les vies de nos jeunes. Il y a toujours de l'espoir et c'est le gros bon sens que les entreprises qui ont causé cette crise devraient payer le prix. Donc, ramenons le gros bon sens chez nous. Ramenons la récupération et le traitement chez nous. Ramenons l'espoir chez nous. C'est ce que le gouvernement Poilievre va faire. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. Now in English. After 8 years of Justin Trudeau, everything feels broken. Inflation rising faster than at any time in 40 years after $500 billion of inflationary deficits bid up the cost of the goods we buy and the interest that we pay. His carbon taxes, with the support of the NDP, are driving up heat and grocery bills, so seniors have to choose between heating and eating. 9 in 10 Canadians now say, young Canadians now say they'll never own a home after housing costs have doubled under Justin Trudeau. Here in Vancouver and the Vancouver region, I should say, those costs are worse than ever. The reason is that inflationary federal deficits are moving up interest rates on our mortgage payments, and local gatekeepers block construction, driving up housing costs and making it impossible for our young to house themselves. All of this has led to despair, and everything feels broken. There's a 32% increase in violent crime after Trudeau brought in a catch-and-release bail system that allows criminals who've committed dozens of violent offenses to be released the very same day they are arrested, out on bail to reoffend again and again. In Vancouver alone, the same 40 people were arrested 6,000 times in a year. That's 150 arrests per person per year. All of them getting out on bail most of the time the same day because of Trudeau's broken catch-and-release bail system, something my government will fix with common sense bail reforms. But there's no question that part of the problem is the opioid and addiction crisis. Just this week, we learned that the overdose rate has more than doubled since the opioid crisis was declared in 2016. This is the result of broken NDP Liberal policies that flood our streets with easy drugs. But it's also the result of a lack of treatment programs that could be saving lives. Those programs are going to cost a lot of money. It's worth the money, but who should pay? Well, who caused the problem in the first place? Large pharmaceutical multinationals like Purdue Pharma and others brought these opioids into North America, lied to drug regulators and to the healthcare system in order to market these drugs as safe and non-addictive. They even paid bonuses to distributors who successfully caused overdoses. In other words, they were incentivizing misery. These powerful multinationals knew exactly what they were doing, but they kept doing it anyway to profit themselves and their wealthy executives. They destroyed thousands of lives. 33,000 overdose deaths since 2016. Roughly 30,000 hospitalizations have resulted, with massive costs to taxpayers and obviously massive human costs to people across our country. Yet, the Trudeau government has done nothing to hold these powerful pharmaceutical companies and their consultants like McKinsey accountable for what they have done, for the misery that they wreaked, and for the profit that they made doing all of this. A Poilievre government will hold them accountable. I will launch a massive series of lawsuits amounting to over $40 billion in claims. We will join British Columbia's lawsuit in order to recover the federal health costs that have resulted from Big Pharma's dirty and disgusting actions against our communities. We will launch a separate federal lawsuit to recover money that the federal government has had to spend on borders, Indigenous programs, policing, treatment, and other costs associated with this crisis. The people who profited from this misery should be the ones to pay the bill. It's about bringing home accountability and bringing home hope. We can transform the hurt that they caused into the hope that people need. Behind me, we have hope. We have the people who've demonstrated the courage to be clean, sober, and proud. Their families rallied to them. Their communities stepped up with programs of detox, counseling, inpatient treatment. Neighboring Alberta, they've doubled the number of treatment beds, which has lowered the overdose rate and begun to save lives. In other words, we know what we need to do. We need to get people off the streets and into treatment so that we can bring them home drug-free. And a Poilievre government will do that. We will sue Big Pharma, and we will make them pay the price of a massive surge in recovery and treatment programs that will save the lives of our brothers, sisters, friends, and neighbors. Hope is possible, but it requires accountability. And a Poilievre-led government will deliver both that accountability and that hope. Thank you very much to the incredible people who are here today for your amazing courage. You are now an inspiration to people, to literally thousands of people who are going through what you have survived. You have demonstrated that it is possible to turn your lives around and to live drug-free lives, to support your communities and your family. You have demonstrated incredible courage. Let's make more stories like this. Let's help people recover. Let's give them hope. Let's bring it home. Your home, my home, our home, Canada. Thank you. Questions?
We'll now take questions from the floor.
Hi, I'm Daphne Bramman from the Vancouver Sun-Post Media. You talk about joining British Columbia in this lawsuit. I'm wondering where your government would stand on the program of decriminalization that's been approved by the federal government with the BC government, and also on the issue of safe supply.
Okay, so I will answer those. I just want to clarify that that what I've proposed today is not just to join the British Columbia lawsuit, but also to launch a separate federal lawsuit. For the provincial lawsuit, we're going to seek $4 billion in federal damages because of the extra federal health costs, but we're also going to launch a separate federal lawsuit to go after non-health costs like border security, prisons, Indigenous programming, etc. So a total of roughly $45 billion is what Big Pharma owes federal taxpayers, and we're going to put that money towards recovery and treatment. As for decriminalization, I don't believe that decriminalizing crack, heroin, illicit fentanyl, methamphetamines is the solution. That is effective. Decriminalization has been effectively practiced in Vancouver for the last 5 or 6 years. Police have not been arresting people for possession for that time. We've seen the result. The NDP Liberal approach over the last 7 years has been a disaster. And we see it walking down Hastings Street. We see it in the data. The data is now absolutely conclusive. Putting more drugs on our streets makes for higher overdoses and more crime. What we need to do is give people the hope for a drug-free life by putting our resources into recovery and treatment programs like the one run by Last Door. Thank you.
What about safe supply?
Okay, next question.
Hi, my name is Martin McMahon with City News. I just had a question related to a social media post a couple of weeks ago, and it's on housing, which is something you're talking about. And it makes a point that it was 4 or 5 years for people to save up for a down payment before Prime Minister Trudeau came into power. I'm just trying to clarify, are you talking about the year 2014? And if not, what period are you talking about? And do you stick by that claim that it took 4 or 5 years for people to save up for a down payment in 2014?
That claim is, I don't remember exactly what post you're talking about. We have lots of posts, but here are the facts. When Trudeau took office, the average mortgage payment for an average new home purchase was $1,400. Now it's $3,200. It's more than doubled. The average rent in Canada's 10 biggest cities was $950. Now it's well over $2,000. So housing costs have doubled under Justin Trudeau. And if I can be blunt, across Canada, housing was cheap when Justin Trudeau took office. Very cheap. The average house was $450,000. Now it's been well over $700,000. And again, the average mortgage payment was a modest $1,400 for a new purchase. So we can show that Justin Trudeau and his government have presided over the doubling of housing costs and made it next to impossible for anyone to save up for a home. You know, I was talking to a young lady who works as a CATSA screener at Pearson Airport in Toronto. Good job. She's saving $6,000 a year for a future down payment. She needs 60 grand for that down payment. That's 10 years. She's 27 years old. That means if house prices don't rise at all, she'll be almost 40 before she can afford a home. Before Trudeau, people in their mid-20s could easily afford housing. And so it is clear that this is 8 years of Justin Trudeau. The solution is to get rid of the inflationary deficits that have driven up mortgage rates and to bring in incentives for municipalities to grant faster building permits, to put high-density housing around every federally funded transit station, and to sell off 15% of the 37,000 federal buildings to convert them into affordable housing for our young people. We will bring homes people can afford. Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, Ashley Joanno, Canadian Press. I'm interested specifically in your position on supervised consumption sites. Would a government led by you leave the laws in place as they are currently for these sites where people can bring their own drugs and use them under medical supervision, or introduce new rules?
Well, the existing overall system has failed. The data is clear now. Overdose rates have skyrocketed under the NDP and Liberal approach that has allowed for drugs to flood our streets. Now we're seeing that, for example, the so-called safe supply of hydromorphine has led people to take those drugs, sell them to kids, rip off their labels, sell them to kids, and then use the profits to buy illicit fentanyl. The problem with this approach is that the government-provided drugs then lead people to move to more dangerous and more dangerous drugs that ultimately lead to higher overdose rates. And that is one of the reasons why we have such a massive increase in overdose rates since the policies you've described have come into place over the last 7 years. So I believe there are medications that we should provide to help reduce the pain of withdrawal and reverse the effects of overdose. But I don't believe in flooding our communities with more and more taxpayer-funded drugs. Rather, we should use the resources to provide recovery and treatment, which is the only proven way to deliver life-saving help to people and to bring home drug-free lives.
Okay, next question.
Hi there, Melanie Nagy from CTV National News. A lot of good questions here. I have a couple for you, but since we're only allowed 5 from a total for the media, I'm going to give my question to my colleague Glenn McGregor from Ottawa. He would like to know from you, on Friday you released a video where you suggested the Prime Minister is flying on private jets. Are you suggesting that if you become Prime Minister, you would not fly on those government-operated aircraft and also forego the security detail that comes with those flights?
So the reason I mentioned his private jet is because the Prime Minister has become completely out of touch with everyday people and the way that they are suffering because of the terrible air travel in this country after 8 years of Justin Trudeau. You know, the number of flight delays, 30,000 complaints now at the Canadian Transportation Agency, 30,000 of them. And Glenn McGregor should be covering the fact that the people who make those complaints can't even get those complaints investigated. Something like 75% of the complainants are now complaining about the fact that their complaint can't be heard. This is 8 years of Justin Trudeau. We didn't have these level of delays prior to him being in office. And let's remember, air travel is exclusively federal jurisdiction. Airports are federal, airlines are federally regulated. The entire air transportation system is federal in nature. And Justin Trudeau should be accountable for the terrible treatment that our passengers are getting under his watch. He should push for more competition. He should allow for the complaints that are made against the airlines and the airports to be heard more quickly, and the penalties to be meted out to against those airlines quicker and more accountably than he has done. And the fact, finally, on this the issue of private jets, Justin Trudeau loves to lecture people about driving too much or heating their homes. He hits them with carbon taxes to punish them for that. And yet, he jets around more than any other Prime Minister to go on surfing trips and to go to the Caribbean in the middle of the summer. He is completely out of touch, and Canadians are completely out of money. Thank you.
This will be the last question.
I would just appeal to Mr. Poilievre. My name is Yvette Brandam from CBC in Vancouver. I have a French colleague behind me who has some excellent questions, and it would be great if you could allow a couple of French questions after this, if possible.
Well, you could give your question. I think we've had 4 in English already.
Unfortunately, I'm only allowed to ask this question from Ottawa, so this is my question to you, but I would appeal to you to allow a
Well,
French answer.
why are you asking questions from Ottawa? Why can't we allow British Columbians to ask questions?
Well, you've only allowed 5, so
there's
we all
that's
had
lots.
to
Let's hear
coordinate
from
and come
British
up with the best
Columbians.
question. So here's the question. How concerned are you by recent polls that show that many Conservative supporters believe the electoral system isn't fair or even? Angus Reid's findings suggested that some feel the election was even stolen. And why do you think that Conservative supporters are more concerned about this than others?
Well, I think Justin Trudeau has inspired a lot of suspicion by his refusal to, 1, answer questions about his knowledge of Beijing's interference to help him in 2 successive elections. Leaked CSIS and PCO documents now show that Beijing worked to help elect Justin Trudeau. That is an accepted fact. He doesn't even deny it. But he kept it hidden until courageous whistleblowers at CSIS released it for him. And now he refuses a public inquiry. I think Canadians of all political backgrounds are asking, what has Justin Trudeau got to hide? And furthermore, why hasn't he protected Chinese Canadians? Here in British Columbia, we know that Chinese Canadians came under intimidation by the People's Republic of China government. They were threatened. There were times when Conservative candidates would knock on a door and the person answering it would say, can we go into the backyard and leave our phones behind so that we can talk without being surveilled by the regime in Beijing? I think it is disgraceful that the Prime Minister knew this and did absolutely nothing. He kept it covered up, and to this day will not even tell us how much money the Liberal Party got in donations that were funneled, clandestine donations, to his party. So if we want to restore faith in our democracy, we have to answer the questions and bring in transparency so Canadians know what happened and we get direct action to make sure it never happens again. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.